My beloved child. Before the world fully wakes around you, there is something quietly unfolding beyond your sight, something that has been moving through conversations, glances, and unspoken emotions for far longer than you realize. This message found you because a hidden piece of a larger story is beginning to surface, and although the truth has not fully stepped into the light yet, its presence can already be felt. Do not rush past this moment. Stay here a little longer, because something important is waiting for you. Not every secret is born from deception. Some secrets are created by hesitation. Some are protected by fear of misunderstanding. And some remain hidden simply because the right moment has not arrived. There is a woman connected to your soulmate's world whose heart has been carrying something significant for quite some time. She has walked through ordinary days while holding extraordinary thoughts. She has smiled during conversations while quietly guarding information that could change the way certain pieces of the story are understood. The remarkable thing is that this secret was never really about creating distance. In many ways, it was about protecting people. Protecting feelings. Protecting timing. Protecting situations that seemed too delicate to disturb. And yet, the longer something meaningful remains hidden, the heavier it becomes. You know this feeling. Perhaps you have carried things in silence before. Perhaps there were moments when you wanted to speak but chose patience instead. Moments when you knew something important, yet waited because the timing felt incomplete. That is the energy surrounding this situation now. A quiet waiting. A careful observing. A delicate balancing act that cannot continue forever. The strange part is that signs of this hidden truth have already appeared. Small signs. Almost invisible signs. A sentence that sounded incomplete. A reaction that felt unusually emotional. A conversation that changed direction at the last moment. Tiny details that seemed insignificant then but may carry greater meaning when viewed through a different lens. Nothing dramatic. Nothing chaotic. Just subtle clues left behind by a truth trying to find its way into the open. And somewhere within all of this, your soulmate has been sensing that something feels different. Not necessarily knowing exactly what it is. Not yet. But feeling it. The way people sometimes feel rain in the air before clouds gather. The way the ocean changes before the tide turns. The way a heart recognizes movement before the mind understands it. Something has been shifting. Slowly. Quietly. Patiently. There are moments when this woman has almost spoken openly. Moments when the words nearly escaped. Moments when honesty stood at the edge of a conversation, ready to step forward. But each time, another thought appeared. Another reason to wait. Another question. Another uncertainty. And so the truth remained just beneath the surface. Yet something is changing now. The energy around hidden things cannot remain frozen forever. Life has a way of creating openings. Unexpected opportunities. Unexpected clarity. Unexpected courage. What seemed impossible to say yesterday suddenly becomes easier to say tomorrow. What felt risky begins to feel necessary. And what remained hidden starts asking to be seen. Listen carefully. This is not a story about conflict. It is not a story about loss. It is not a story about fear. It is a story about revelation. About understanding. About the gentle unfolding of information that helps people see situations more clearly than before. Because sometimes the most life-changing secrets are not shocking at all. Sometimes they simply explain things. They connect pieces. They answer questions nobody knew how to ask. They reveal why certain events happened the way they did. And that is why this moment matters. The secret itself is only one part of the story. The deeper significance lies in what happens after it is known. The understanding it creates. The perspective it brings. The emotional clarity that follows. Perhaps that is why you were guided here today. Not to focus on mystery alone, but to understand that truth has its own timing, its own rhythm, its own journey. And right now, that journey is approaching an important turning point. There is a feeling in the atmosphere surrounding this situation that resembles dawn. Not the bright sunlight of midday. Not the darkness of midnight. But that quiet space in between. The moment when the horizon begins changing color. The moment when you realize night is ending, even before the sun appears. That is where this story stands now. Between hidden and revealed. Between silence and understanding. Between uncertainty and clarity. And although the full picture has not emerged yet, the first rays are beginning to appear. You may not see them directly. You may not recognize them immediately. But they are there. Subtle. Steady. Growing stronger. What makes this especially meaningful is that the truth has been shaping events even while remaining unseen. Think about that for a moment. How often does life work this way? How often do invisible factors influence visible outcomes? How often do untold stories quietly guide emotions, decisions, and relationships? More often than people realize. And that is why what is coming matters. Because understanding changes everything. Not by forcing transformation. Not by creating upheaval. But by illuminating what was always there. There is also something deeply human about this woman's silence. She is not a symbol. Not a mystery character in a distant story. She is someone who has wrestled with emotions, questions, and responsibilities. Someone who has spent time wondering whether speaking would help or complicate things. Someone who has felt the weight of knowing. And perhaps, more than anything else, someone who is growing tired of carrying this alone. Secrets often begin as choices. But eventually they become burdens. And burdens naturally seek release. The closer we move toward truth, the harder it becomes to remain silent. The closer we move toward clarity, the louder honesty becomes within the heart. That inner voice grows stronger. That desire for openness grows stronger. That need for authenticity grows stronger. And that is exactly what is happening now. Don't skip this part. Because something beautiful is hidden inside this realization. The emergence of truth is not merely about information. It is about freedom. Freedom from uncertainty. Freedom from carrying things alone. Freedom from the invisible walls that silence creates. And whether anyone realizes it yet or not, that freedom is beginning to call. A conversation may soon feel different. A familiar situation may suddenly make more sense. A piece of understanding may arrive where confusion once stood. Not all at once. Not dramatically. But naturally. As though the story itself has finally decided it is ready to continue. The most fascinating moments in life are often the quiet ones. Not the loud announcements. Not the grand revelations. But those subtle turning points when everything begins changing beneath the surface. This feels like one of those moments. The kind people only fully understand when looking back later. The kind that seems ordinary while it is happening. Yet extraordinary once its significance becomes clear. And somewhere ahead, just beyond what can currently be seen, another piece of this story is waiting. A piece that explains why this secret remained hidden for so long. A piece that reveals what truly motivated the silence. A piece that may connect your soulmate's journey in ways nobody expected. For now, that chapter remains unopened. But not for much longer. Because the truth has already started moving. And once truth begins moving, it rarely chooses to stop. The first sign that something is changing is rarely a spoken confession. More often, it arrives as a feeling. A shift in the atmosphere. A subtle difference in the way people look at one another. A pause that lasts slightly longer than usual. A conversation that suddenly feels as though it is carrying more weight beneath its surface. That is where this story continues. The secret has not fully stepped into the light yet, but it is no longer resting comfortably in the shadows. Something within this woman has begun to change. Not because she was pressured. Not because anyone forced her hand. But because there comes a moment when keeping a truth hidden becomes more difficult than revealing it. And she is approaching that moment. For a long time, she convinced herself that silence was the safest path. She told herself there would be a better time. A better opportunity. A clearer situation. A more perfect moment. Yet life rarely presents perfect moments. Instead, it presents crossroads. And she now finds herself standing at one. The interesting thing is that very few people around her understand what she has been carrying. They see her daily routines. They hear her ordinary words. They witness her familiar smiles. But they do not hear the conversations she has had with herself during quiet hours. They do not know how many times she has replayed certain thoughts. How many times she has imagined speaking openly. How many times she has wondered what might happen if the truth finally found its voice. And while all of this has been happening within her, another process has been unfolding around your soulmate. A growing awareness. A feeling that certain pieces of the puzzle are missing. Not enough to form conclusions. Not enough to create certainty. But enough to spark curiosity. Enough to create questions. Enough to sense that there may be more beneath the surface than anyone realizes. Have you ever experienced that feeling? That strange awareness that something important exists just beyond your understanding? You cannot fully explain it. You cannot fully prove it. Yet you know it is there. That is the energy surrounding this situation now. A quiet knowing without complete knowledge. A doorway that has not opened yet but is beginning to unlock. What makes this especially fascinating is that the secret itself may not be what people expect. Human imagination often creates dramatic possibilities whenever mystery appears. But reality has a different habit. Reality tends to reveal truths that are meaningful not because they are shocking, but because they explain things. Because they connect moments. Because they answer questions people did not even realize they were asking. And somewhere within this unfolding story, understanding is waiting. Stay with this moment. Something important is waiting for you. Because there is another layer few people have noticed. The woman carrying this secret has not only been protecting information. She has been protecting emotions. There were feelings involved. Feelings that seemed fragile. Feelings that seemed vulnerable. Feelings that she believed needed time before they could safely exist in the open. Whether that belief was right or wrong is not the point. The point is that her silence came from a place that was more complicated than most people would assume. And complexity often creates hesitation. The heart says one thing. The mind says another. Memories offer one perspective. Hope offers another. The result becomes an endless cycle of waiting. Waiting for certainty. Waiting for confidence. Waiting for courage. Yet courage rarely arrives before action. More often, courage appears during action. It grows while a person steps forward. And somewhere deep within her, that courage is beginning to awaken. Not suddenly. Not dramatically. But steadily. Like a candle being lit in a dark room. Small at first. Then stronger. Then impossible to ignore. Meanwhile, events around her continue moving in ways she did not anticipate. Conversations happen. Connections deepen. Questions arise. Circumstances evolve. And with every passing day, the possibility of remaining silent becomes less realistic. Life itself is creating pressure toward honesty. Gentle pressure. Natural pressure. The kind that does not force truth but invites it. There is also something your soulmate may not fully realize. Certain moments from the past now hold greater significance than they appeared to at the time. Little exchanges. Small observations. Simple experiences. Pieces that once seemed ordinary are beginning to gather new meaning. As if invisible threads have quietly connected them. As if a larger picture has been forming all along. And this realization will eventually matter. Because understanding rarely arrives alone. It brings perspective with it. It reveals patterns. It illuminates connections. It transforms random moments into meaningful chapters. Perhaps that is why this secret feels so important. Not because of what it contains, but because of what it explains. Because once certain truths become visible, many things suddenly make sense. The heart relaxes. The mind settles. Confusion gives way to clarity. And questions that lingered for months finally find answers. There is another scene unfolding that nobody speaks about. A private one. A silent one. A moment that occurs whenever this woman finds herself alone with her thoughts. During those moments, she no longer wonders whether the truth should emerge. She wonders how. How should it be said? How should it be explained? How should years of silence be transformed into words? Those are very different questions. And the fact that she is asking them reveals something important. The decision itself may already be forming. The hesitation remains. The uncertainty remains. But deep down, movement has begun. And movement changes everything. Because once the heart starts moving toward honesty, it rarely turns back completely. Even if the journey takes time. Even if the words arrive slowly. Even if fear occasionally returns. The direction has changed. And direction matters more than speed. Don't look away from this realization. Many people spend their lives waiting for certainty before taking meaningful steps. Yet certainty often arrives afterward. After the conversation. After the decision. After the leap of faith. This woman is beginning to understand that. She is beginning to realize that perfect clarity may never come first. That sometimes truth simply asks to be trusted. To be spoken. To be allowed into the world. The atmosphere surrounding this story feels different now than it did before. Less hidden. Less distant. Less locked away. There is movement where there was once stillness. There is possibility where there was once hesitation. There is openness where there was once silence. And perhaps the most powerful realization of all is this. The secret is no longer the only thing growing. Awareness is growing too. Understanding is growing. Readiness is growing. The space between hidden and revealed is becoming smaller with each passing moment. Soon, another piece of this story will begin to surface. A piece connected to why this woman chose silence in the first place. A reason deeper than most people would ever guess. A reason that may completely change the way this journey is understood. That explanation has remained protected for a very long time. But it is moving closer now. Closer than ever before. And when that layer finally emerges, the story will take a direction few could have predicted. For now, only one thing is certain. The silence is becoming lighter. The truth is becoming stronger. And somewhere just ahead, another door is preparing to open. There is a moment in every hidden story when the focus quietly shifts. At first, all attention remains on the secret itself. People wonder what is being concealed. They wonder why it was hidden. They wonder when it will finally be revealed. But eventually another question becomes more important. Why did the silence begin in the first place? And that is where this journey moves now. Because the deeper truth has never been the secret alone. The deeper truth has always been the heart behind it. For a long time, this woman believed she was doing the right thing. Not because she enjoyed carrying unanswered questions. Not because she wanted confusion to linger. But because she genuinely believed that waiting would protect something valuable. Perhaps a relationship. Perhaps someone's feelings. Perhaps a situation that seemed too fragile to disturb. Whatever the reason, it mattered deeply to her. That is why she remained silent even when opportunities to speak appeared. That is why she stepped back when honesty stood directly in front of her. And that is why this story has taken so long to reach this point. Yet time changes perspective. What once seemed wise begins to feel incomplete. What once felt necessary begins to feel heavy. And what once appeared protective begins to feel limiting. That is exactly what she has been discovering. Slowly. Quietly. One realization at a time. The strange thing about truth is that it has a way of returning. Even when ignored. Even when delayed. Even when carefully set aside. It returns. Not aggressively. Not impatiently. But persistently. Like a gentle knock on a door that refuses to be forgotten. And lately, that knock has been growing louder. Not in the world around her. Inside her. Inside the place where honesty lives. Inside the place where people know when they are ready for a new chapter. There have been nights when she replayed old conversations. Moments she thought were insignificant. Moments she thought had already passed. Yet now, viewed through a different lens, they seem entirely different. A look she once overlooked. A sentence she once dismissed. An emotion she once ignored. Pieces she never expected to revisit. And every time she revisits them, the same realization appears. The truth matters. Not because it changes the past, but because it may change how the past is understood. Stay with this thought, because it carries more significance than it first appears. Many people believe revelations are about discovering something new. Often they are not. Often revelations are about finally understanding what was there all along. The facts may remain unchanged. The events may remain unchanged. Yet the meaning becomes clearer. And clarity can transform everything. That is why this hidden story has reached such an important stage. The woman carrying this secret is no longer focused on avoiding the conversation. Instead, she finds herself imagining what understanding might look like afterward. What relief might feel like. What freedom might feel like. What it might be like to no longer carry this invisible weight by herself. That shift is powerful. Because when someone begins imagining life beyond silence, silence starts losing its hold. And there is another detail that deserves attention. Throughout all of this, your soulmate's journey has continued moving forward. Life has not paused. Days have passed. Experiences have accumulated. Emotions have evolved. Yet beneath everything, there remains a subtle connection to this unfinished chapter. An invisible thread. Not obvious enough to explain. Not obvious enough to define. But present enough to matter. It is almost as if life has been patiently waiting for a missing piece to arrive. Not because everything depends on it, but because certain understandings cannot fully form until it does. The woman senses this now. More clearly than ever before. She may not have every answer. She may not know exactly how events will unfold. But she knows one thing. The story cannot remain unfinished forever. And perhaps that realization is what has been changing her most. Not fear. Not pressure. Not urgency. Acceptance. The acceptance that truth deserves its place. The acceptance that honesty has value. The acceptance that some conversations arrive precisely when they are meant to. There is something beautiful happening beneath the surface. A quiet transformation. Not of circumstances, but of perspective. For so long, this secret felt like something that needed guarding. Now it feels like something waiting to be understood. That difference may seem small. Yet it changes everything. Because guards keep things locked away. Understanding invites things into the light. And understanding is becoming stronger every day. Don't skip this moment. Because many people listening have experienced something similar in their own lives. Not necessarily the same situation, but the same emotional pattern. Holding something inside. Waiting for the right time. Believing tomorrow will somehow provide perfect clarity. Only to discover that clarity grows through honesty itself. That realization has been quietly finding its way into this woman's heart. And once a realization takes root, it begins changing everything around it. The way she thinks. The way she reflects. The way she sees the future. Even the way she remembers the past. What once felt impossible now feels possible. What once felt distant now feels near. What once felt locked away now feels ready. And while no one can predict the exact moment when truth fully emerges, one thing has become unmistakably clear. The direction has changed. There is no longer movement away from honesty. There is movement toward it. Slowly. Steadily. Naturally. Like a river finding its path. Like dawn finding the horizon. Like a story approaching the chapter it was always meant to reach. And somewhere beyond what can currently be seen, another realization is waiting. A realization connected not only to the secret itself, but to the unexpected impact it may have once it becomes known. Because the truth may influence more hearts than anyone anticipated. Not through drama. Not through upheaval. But through understanding. Through clarity. Through the quiet power that honest conversations often carry. That part of the story has not fully arrived yet. It remains just beyond the horizon. But the horizon is closer now than it has ever been. The silence is thinning. The distance is shrinking. And the next chapter is already beginning to take shape, even if nobody can see its full outline yet. For now, the only thing that matters is this. A hidden truth is no longer standing still. A guarded story is no longer trapped in silence. And a woman who once believed waiting was the answer is beginning to discover that understanding may finally be ready to take its place.